In this section we're going to look in more detail at the third window, which is the serial decoded window. So here again we can see the packets of data that have been acquired. First thing, we can see the numbers of the data, and here we actually just see the address and the data bytes. So for example, the packet number 2 was an address packet, and the address was OC. This is in fact the address of the DAC that's on the I2C bus, and it was a write to the DAC, and the byte was acknowledged, and again we can see the start and end times that this occurred on. The data was then sent 3 data bytes. Data byte 01, 24 and 1D was sent to the address OC. Again, each byte was acknowledged, and we can see the transfer times of each particular byte. The next transfer was an address OC. Again, this was addressing the DAC, and again it was a write to the DAC. And then again we see the data. So here we see 02, so this was DAC number 1, and this is DAC number 2, and here we can see the level. So they were both switching, in fact, the same change in level, so they were both data bytes 24, and then finally we see the acknowledgement bytes. Looking along the menu, we can export this data as like an Excel spreadsheet. We can accumulate, so this becomes highlighted. So if we acquired more data, it would add on to this display more packets of data and wouldn't overwrite the existing acquired data. And in fact this is done by using the buffers provided by the oscilloscope, the data buffers. And this control toggles. In the view menu we can see what we've been viewing. So we've been viewing just the addresses, data and error and unknowns. So for example, if I added the start byte, here we can now see packet number 1 and packet number 7, which were the start bytes. So here for example we can see the additional packets that have been added. There's the start byte, packet 7. It's also possible obviously to see the stop byte, so we can see the final stops. Also, if any errors or unknown conditions occur, these can be flagged up. In the fields menu, again we can choose exactly which fields to display. So for example, if I remove the acknowledgement field, that's now been removed from the display. So reinstate the acknowledgement, and now we can see the acknowledgement field. So every view can be added or removed. The display formats can be chosen. So at the moment we're in hex, but it could be displayed as decimal or ASCII. So if it's an ASCII transfer, we can use the ASCII decode. And finally we can select the size of the font. So we can have it larger if required. The next item along is a link field, so we can link this acquisition, say for example to an Excel spreadsheet, and so this data that's been acquired can be linked directly to an Excel spreadsheet. And the advantage of this then that the user can add his own mnemonics to each acquisition of data, so it can be more meaningful to a particular system. Here we can view where we want to start and stop the data that is being displayed, and then we can add stats, so we can add more statistics, and we can search for particular values in the acquired data. This is a very large acquisition, and this is valuable to be able to search for particular data values. So finally, just to indicate that we can also use the cursors to make similar measurements. So cursors are available here. So for example, we could measure the time between the channel A switching and the channel B switching. So I'll put it on those two edges and here we can see the actual time, and here we can see the delta time between the events. This could also be used to, if you wanted to measure the clock period, we could zoom into a particular area and measure the clock period. So if we zoom in a particular area, so here's the zoom, and we can choose which area we're zooming in on, and then we can position the cursors on each particular event as chosen here. So here's my second cursor. So again we can measure the period of the clock for the particular system. This can also be displayed in the view menu, because we can actually display the actual baud rate of the signal. So we can choose down here to display the baud rate. So here we see the baud rate. This particular system was 89 kilobaud. When you're finished with the zoom display, we can return to the original display.